And then the church came with 424 people to repudiate the doctrine of, oh my gosh, what's the name? Of discovery, which basically one pope had decided that land could only be owned by Christians. And ever since, the governments have been using that. So the church said, and they were all denominations of Protestants, the Catholics, and Jews, and they came and said to the natives, the governments can no longer use us. We are repudiating this. We're not believing in this anymore. And they did more than this. They went and did a prayer circle close to where the police was, and they went and talked with the governor, or to the governor, who didn't want to be talked to. But we did a lot of prayers, and they about 20 of them were arrested on felony charges.
They love to create the drama too in town. We had to laugh because the minute the clergy showed up, they sent out like a warning text to everybody in town that there are protesters in the area, and they put the courthouse on lockdown.
Yeah.
I mean,
but the way they were treating the clergy was so like night and day compared to the way they were dealing with the natives. With the natives, they would give absolutely no warnings. With the clergy, they would give 2-3 warnings before they would actually arrest them. So it was so obvious, the treatment difference. And then one day, we had people on horses, and we were treated to a 2-hour ceremony that was just beautiful. This is a line that I think summarizes what we're about very well. Then we came back, and we came back pretty much the day before winter started to set in. So winterizing was very important. There started to be support from organizations like the UN, like Amnesty International. I'll show some slides. Chase Iron Eyes, who's a native politician, started to speak out more. His wife had been arrested early on. She's a medical doctor, a pediatrician. And after she was arrested, he started to be more and more vocal politically. And then lies and violence escalation by the Morton County Sheriff and the police. So a slide showing the beauty of winter, but don't get me wrong, it gets below -20 Fahrenheit with blustering winds. It's not an easy life to stay there.
Feels like was -50 today.
This is Chase Iron. You can find him on YouTube. He's worth listening to. One of the things that I didn't tell you is that when you get there as a white person or as a non-native person, the first thing you realize is that you really have to be very humble and listen, because for the most part they haven't been heard in over 500 years, and it's time for us, the non-natives, to pay attention and to listen. And even if you have some stuff to share, it's time for us to listen. So this is a slide about the UN denouncing what's going on there. A slide about Amnesty International that went 4 times. And then the first bank that pulls out its support from the Dakota Pipeline is a bank from Norway. And the way it happened is that natives from Norway came to Standing Rock, took all sorts of documentation of human abuse, and then had a 20-page document that they gave the CEO of that bank, and then they decided to sell their investment. The vets had decided to go, and so this is a nice story of this guy who had said that he would never wear his uniform again, but this was a cause that he felt like he really wanted to put it back on. It's kind of interesting that on November 23rd, we had a statement from the chairman saying we're not going to go to war. And then the next day, the natives were notified that the Army Corps of Engineers was no longer going to grant them permission to stay on the big camp. North of the Cannonball River was Army Corps of Engineer. It's treaty land, but it's legally now Army Corps of Engineer land. And then what happened after that? they stated that they would not force people out, but they left it open for the Morton County Police to actually do whatever they please. And not long after that, a day or so after that, there's starting to be the water cannon, supposedly to put out fires, but there was no fire to be seen, and people start to be hit with rubber bullets. And yes,
This happened before. This was November 20th, and then we showed up there like a few days after that.
oh, okay,
And then
it had already started.
While we were there, the letter was given for the eviction notice.
Yeah.
Because when we got there, the first night that we were really there, the people who were at there,
The front line,
The
yeah.
bridge.
yeah, were sharing their stories
Okay.
about what they saw.
And that's it's around that time that the young white woman lost her arm, right?
That was that night.
At that
Yeah.
night, yes.
She didn't
Lose
lose
it.
it.
She didn't lose it.
No.
Yeah.
But almost.
Yeah.
And it was a terrible thing because they lied about what they did, but they actually shot twice at her. The first time they barely hit her, she was able to try to run away, and then they really got her arm bad. And her dad has videos where he's crying because of the way that she was treated. But that's, on the one hand, it's a negative thing. On the other, she was white, and if it had happened to a Native woman, she would not have gotten the publicity that this young woman got. And you have to keep realizing that over and over. It's only when white people get arrested, when white people get hurt, that the media starts being interested. And in a way, it's good for us to attract attention so that everybody starts paying attention to the natives. On the other, it's time for a balancing out to happen and for the natives to be heard for their own right. So I'm going to go quickly because there's a lot. They were saying they were not throwing grenades. This is a series of 4 slides from a video where you see that here there's nothing being shot. Here there's a little light coming out. It's coming out even further, and it's even further, and you can see that line like it's split seconds. I tried to show it quickly so I don't have to play the video. And you can see on the video that it doesn't happen once, but there's several shots being sent.
That's what started the fires first.
And then the natives put out the fires.
Yeah, and that's on video too. And then the fires, yes, later there was a couple to keep people warm. But
So at first, the Morton County Police asked for police from other states to come in and help them. And at some point, the police from other states refused to stay there, went back home, and refused to come back. And then finally, we get notice on November 28 that the sheriff was going to be sued for excessive force, and that was a class action suit. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights issues also a statement. Okay, so the Morton County sheriff was trying to sound like he was humanitarian by saying, the winter is going to be awfully hard for you guys. You better leave now. We care about you. It was something to be laughed at because he was at the same time putting pressure with the police forces like he really cared.
Spraying them with hoses.
Yeah.
and trying to stop heaters from coming in and propane.
And telling Ace Hardware not to let them buy propane.
And at the same
And
time,
we'll arrest you if you bring supplies.
so he put out this statement that he was going to block supplies.
That was what that's
Yeah.
why it's like, how? I'm sorry.
And then the
usually
next
call
day-
people dumb, but how dumb is that?
And the next day he said, oh, no, that would not be humanitarian to do that. We're not going to block supplies. This is an interesting slide. If you ever doubt the power of protest, just look what they do try to silence you. How many law enforcement agencies does it take to subdue a peaceful protest? This was put out by the ACLU.
Isn't that crazy?
A few of the famous people that went there. On December 4th, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers denies easement for the Dakota Access Pipeline. And there's an immediate response by Energy Transfer Partners that basically, we've been granted permission before, so fuck you. We'll go ahead and do it anyway. December 5th, Standing Rock Chairman asked all the non-Sioux people to water protectors to go home. At that time, there were over 12,000 campers in Standing Rock, and it was received by a lot of skepticism, and a lot of people decided to stay. This was long after the vets were supposed to leave. They were supposed to stay there. 2,000 of them were invited, but 4,000 came. They were supposed to stay maybe 3 days, and a lot of them decided to stay. On December 9, there's a district judge, James Bosberg. He gives ETP time to justify not rerouting the pipeline and time for a rebuttal from the Sioux leaders, and he set up a new court date in February. Of course, the pipeline company was upset because they're losing $20 million a day, and the judge said, well, if you hadn't dug without a permit, then you wouldn't be here, would you? And meanwhile, the U.S. Army Corps allegedly had agreed to raise also the water levels of Lake Hawaii, I don't know how to pronounce it, Hawaii, to make the area unstable and unsuitable for drilling. So if the pipeline company were to actually break this law by the Obama administration and try to keep digging, there was that recourse that we could go to without going to war. And then came out also somebody remembered, I don't know how they figured it out, there's a Mini Vichoni Project Act from 1888 that calls on the government to protect water for the indigenous people in the U.S. And this was actually started by a South Dakota representative, Tim Johnson, in 1987. So that's also something to support and back up the natives all around the country, and could stop a lot of the pipelines if the judges actually pay attention to it. But now it's out in the open. And then December 10, the cops are finally being sued for illegally spraying Standing Rock protesters with water in freezing temperatures. So there's various suits going. And I was watching this video from the main camp on December 11. These are a lot of young people, and they were saying there's a lot of untruth out there and a lot of confusion. Let me clear some things up. At that point, there were a total of maybe under 2,500 people in all three camps. So down from close to 15,000. So that was kind of a video that was nice to hear. They had relit the sacred fire, gave the Oceti Isakoan camp a new name, All Nations Camp, which I kind of like because there's a lot of people from different parts of the world. I didn't tell you, but not only did 300 nations show up, plus, to support, and these are nations that were at war with each other, some of them, for centuries, and now they're coming together. It's a rejuvenation of the native culture in a huge way. But also people from around the world and indigenous people from around the world are supporting this. There were people from New Zealand, South America, from Canada, indigenous people, and then just non-indigenous people as well. So millions of people are now supporting this movement. So it's not just about North Dakota and Standing Rock. DAPL is being built through 4 states. Including South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois, and there are protests in different places around the pipeline. And then there's this other pipeline that's being built in near Tampa, in Florida, that's apparently owned by the same guy that owns the DAPL company, and that's threatening land and water in Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. So as things are calming down in Standing Rock, perhaps more people can now move to the other areas that have not gotten as much importance or time on the news. And every week we hear of new other pipeline failures. The latest was in North Dakota, which is kind of interesting given that they're claiming that
20 miles away.
Yeah, given that they're saying it's not, that it's very safe. I wanted to give you an idea. You can't read all the names here, but on the left side, you have all of the companies, financial companies that are supporting, investing in the 4 major branch of this pipeline company. So there's the oil. I'm not going to go into this, but you see how intricate it is. They're supporting different branches of what's going on with the pipeline. So you can find that online. But mainly, there's been 17 banks financing the whole thing, and it's not just North American banks. 11 out of the 18 are European banks, including that one from Norway that's pulling out. And then there's one Canadian bank, there's 3 Japanese banks, and then the rest are European. So it's a worldwide thing. It's not just North Dakota. So not only do you have support from people, but you have investment from all around the world too. And then I put down 2 words there, Equator Principles. I don't know if you've heard that. It's a series of principles that were agreed on by financial institutions on how to make their investments, how should I put it, ethical, something like that. And then the BankTrack is a Dutch company, organization, that's trying to bring the financial institution that belong to these principles to make them accountable for what they've pledged to do. Now, 13 out of these 17 banks are part of this Equator Principles group of people. So they are very vulnerable to being put pressure on to change their mind about what's going on in support of anything that could endanger environmental issues. And now, this is a question for you. What would humanity be without the ruthlessness of ETP and the Morton County Police war gears and violence? And I'm asking that because it's easy to feel negative about the enemy, right? But without them doing that much violence, without them being ruthless as they are, we wouldn't have had as much attention from the whole world as to something that's very small in appearance, but it's just the bullying that corporate world has been using and the financial institutions have been using around the world for now centuries. As early as 1800, you can already see signs of the ruthlessness of the corporate world. And wars, it may not be very well known, but even the First World War was engineered by the industry. So this is just a small point that in appearance, just a pipeline, but it's just the greed of the whole industry that's been going on forever. And so it's important that the rest of the world, that all of us, become more aware of what's going on. It's important to start putting our foot down, but you also honor the fact that they're doing their part to create this awareness. So not to be sending them hatred, but actually thank yous. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. What can we do? So my first point is go to Standing Rock or any other pipeline site where you can actually show your disapproval and your support for a clean environment and fresh water for generations to come. If you can't go, help someone go. Participate in local peaceful and prayerful demonstrations for clean water and in support of indigenous people around the world. Be aware of who you are and what you stand for. What are your values? What are you ready to put yourself on the line for? Release your support from banks and corporations that support any corruption. And call your political reps. And so it's possible to find online a list of reps, like either media or political representatives that you can call to voice your opinion. And that's it. Any questions?
Well,
Yes.
I don't have not a question, but just like on the probably most people saw the Backwater Bridge incident where they were spraying people with water cannons and tear gas and stuff like that. Aside from the fact that they were spraying people in like 28-degree weather, so there's already like a risk of hypothermia and stuff, I actually went a week after that and was working as a medic, and I was still treating people for injuries and respiratory infections and things like that they got from being tear gassed and pepper sprayed and shot with rubber bullets and stuff like that. A week later, I was still treating injuries from that Backwater Bridge issue. Like I treated somebody who had basically went straight from the bridge to their teepee and was like staying there trying to get rid of a cold that they got, of illness that they got from the effects of hypothermia, and like a week later we're still not okay, and like we're coming in for treatment and stuff like that. So like the effects of that are just like enormous. It's like hard to overstate how harmful that one particular night was for the overall, like the general health of the camp. And there are many people there who will probably be suffering from like upper respiratory infections and other effects of both hypothermia and being gassed and stuff like that for a long time, probably months. So the effects of those kinds of things are it's more than just a broken wrist where you see somebody's cast and then it comes off and now you're healed. Like some of these infections become chronic and things like that if you don't have a warm, dry place to get. Yeah, pneumonia is the most important one. Like if you get pneumonia and you don't have a warm, dry place to get to, which is how camp is going to be for the next couple months, you have to leave. Like to stay alive, you need to leave.
Yeah,
So,
not that those injuries aren't bad enough, but
yeah.
it almost tells you that it's spiritually protected there because the potential.
Oh, it could have been so much worse. Like it could have been.
And again, not that it
Yeah.
wasn't bad enough,
Oh,
but
yeah,
think
yeah.
about how many people
Sure.
But yeah, it's
Yeah. It's wild.
So imagine
People are
people
still
going
sick.
through that and staying.
Yeah, and then they say so many of them. I know people who were going to leave and stayed just because of that. Not just because they have like a court date or something like that, but like they
Yeah.
stayed because they were like, I didn't know it was going to get this bad.
Yep.
And like now I know more than ever that like I need to be there.
Yeah, it's like the awareness, like you were saying, and you've said, the awareness just goes up after that. I mean, that's when camp just swells
Yeah.
with support.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
see, this gentleman here has a question.
Well, I just wanted to thank you both for your presentation. You know, it was very informative, and your time there.
And
So-
these 4 people were there as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hmm.
So it's obviously very difficult to hear some of the violence that was put towards the peaceful protest. I'm glad to hear that there's like a civil recourse. Do you know, is there a way to support that, or
Yes.
is there like a website or an organization? Are they organizing a way to keep on top of that?
Legal Aid has its own separate account. Do you know it by chance?
No, I don't know it directly, but there were over 600 people arrested so far over the course of
I think that's even gone up.
There's like 600 people who haven't finished all of the things that they need to do for court or something like that.
Right.
Last time I checked, and so that number is probably going to go like plummet now. But the legal aid now it's not so much we have to bail people out of jail. Now it's like we have to pay for sometimes even to try to get people back and stuff like that, so they can get their bail money back. And get people to hearings.
It's a huge
and stuff.
expense.
And the class action lawsuit costs a lot of money. So I would say like donating to the legal aid is like a super important way to do it.
If
But you
I-
can
if I'm
Google
not
that
wrong-
information.
Well, no, if I'm not wrong, that's where part of the money's going from for today. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
so-
you can certainly Google it, but
Yeah,
these
exactly.
guys know. These guys know
Maybe.
the actual site.
However,
I don't know if there's. It's tricky because with some of
Yeah.
the GoFund or some of the they have similar names, and I don't but
Yeah.
I'm sure they've done their research
Yeah.
and get where
But
it needs to
the
go. But
good
it's an
news is,
important thing
though,
to
that,
donate to. Really,
when I was there about like a week and a half ago, there haven't been any super major actions since then. Where a lot of people have gotten arrested. There's only been like 1 or 2 where a couple of arrests were made. And then when I was there last, actually one doing like a little generator project for the legal tent, and they were like, yeah, we have a good amount of funding. So I don't know that there's like an ongoing need, not necessarily like a hypercritical, like urgent need for donations. So if you have to go
Definitely
home
an
and Google
ongoing
it,
need, yeah.
like it's not like if you don't give to them tonight,
right.
like everything's all is lost. Like you
And then
you can find where it is.
But also to balance things out, they have an urgent need for fresh water because it's all frozen over there,
Yeah.
and for wood to keep warm. The legal support tend to be a famous cause, and
Yeah,
people
yeah.
with a lot of money will donate. Like there's this celebrity that gave over $2 million for that cause, and So they tend to
Where your
attract
heart is.
a lot of money already.
Yeah.
Not to say that they don't need more.
The same thing with the. Oh, sorry. The same thing with the Medic and Healer Council. So the Legal Aid and the Medic and Healer Council. Like, if I were to just ask a random activist, like, who would you donate to at Standing Rock? Like, probably those are the two that you would think of first, like Medic and Healer Council and the Legal Aid. And so, like, the last time I talked to like numbers with the Legal Aid, they were like they have like $42,000 more than they need to take care of all of their needs. So it's not like it's not important to donate there. But at this point, the main camp is focused on surviving, and so
Wood,
donating
water,
to the main camp is actually not a bad idea. The Medic and Healer Council, last time I talked to them, and nobody there is like, boy, have I got too much money, you know? But it's like, a lot of people make donations that are earmarked for those particular ones, and if you donate to the main camp, you can actually have that money go to what's emergency need. Like right now is firewood. Like they're having
Heaters, propane.
yeah, they're having to drive like sometimes 3 hours away to get firewood. Partially because people in North Dakota won't sell firewood to them, but partially also because like it's North Dakota. Like, you know, people need firewood for their own homes and like their own businesses and schools and stuff like that.
They just can't keep up.
Yeah, right.
They're going through, I forget how many base cords
Yeah.
per, teepee or per.
Another aspect of what we didn't talk about is when you live in such intense climate with other people that you're always trying to support or help. There's a crisis, people go, there's something to build, and you can't make money while you're there off of your gifts. So there's a lot of community-oriented support that's really powerful.
One of the most beautiful
So imagine
pieces of it.
leaving that and coming back here, where there's a very little community-oriented
Comparatively.
and very little support. You're on your own. Everybody's individualistic, and it's a very disorienting thing to come back.
I think it would be remiss to not mention Red Fawn.
I was trying
Yeah.
to get that out there
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
Um,
I tried to interrupt. But
Yeah.
Yeah, Red
Sorry.
Fawn's a political prisoner, and a friend of mine, when he was still at camp, was saying she really needs support, financial support for her case. So Google Red Fawn.
Are you familiar?
Her sister put up a website.
With-
She's an activist, and she was arrested, and charges were pressed on her, like felonies and things like that were not true.
Attempted murder.
They released, attempted murder. Yeah, they're claiming that she had a weapon, or
It was much.
Another political
It
prisoner.
was much reminiscent of Leonard Peltier.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's like 23 years old, so she's this young woman who's a social worker, and she was working as a medic, and she was targeted. And there's a video of her, getting tackled. It's crazy.
Yeah, like there's 7 officers on her, and then they say that she tried to shot them. Yeah, we don't have weapons. It's impossible. But anyways, they dropped a felony
I know.
against her,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not other charges.
Yeah.
Yes.
So will we know, like in February, what happens next, or is that when they're going to court?
That's for the North Dakota company. Yes.
What's happening January 20th or something?
That's Trump's inauguration.
Okay, but there's 18. There's another big. Isn't there another court or decision or something that's?
I don't.
No, January 6th. There was going to be another thing with so the court made its own date in February, but the earliest that the easement can be re-granted, like that would be when the environmental survey is done, would be January 6th,
Okay, that's
1
right.
month after
Thank
it
you.
was denied. Is like the next time, 30 days after that is the next time it's available for renewal. But there's no way that they're going to grant an easement at this point. Like, it's just, like, it's not going to happen under this administration. The next thing we really have to be concerned about is January 20th, when Trump takes office. Because if he wanted to, like, literally the next day, he could have an entirely new Army Corps of Engineers leadership grant an easement, like, the next day.
Can he that quick? I thought they could
Well,
be
it's not,
overturned.
they can't. He can't. That doesn't mean that they can drill, by the way, because the federal court. There's so many loops.
I know,
in this,
I know.
But it's not going to be very easy for Trump to actually do anything about this, because partly because of what Energy Transfer Partners tried to do. So like, they tried to get the Army Corps of Engineers and also the federal court to give them right to the land to drill, and both of them denied it.
Right.
So now both of them have to accept it again before they can start drilling. So like the Army Corps of Engineers can grant them easement like right away, right, more or less, I mean within a couple of weeks or whatever of Trump taking office, but then they have to win the federal court, which that judge is not going anywhere.
Gotcha.
You know,
I
so
see
like
what
it's
you're
going to be the same court, the same judge, the same everything hearing their case now that already told them it's not my problem. You're losing $20 million a week,
Right.
kind of thing. So
That was awesome.
A day.
That was
Yeah.
the best,
Yeah.
best.
And it was such a
It was
burn.
the best
I was like-
one-liner. It was like, best thing I heard in months.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's gonna
I
be.
mean, we shouldn't look to the courts or Obama or anything like that and say, yeah, go those guys, because who won? So, like, who won? The reason that the drills are not going in North Dakota right now is because of indigenous communities standing up and saying no. This is a victory for indigenous rights. It's a victory for recognizing indigenous treaties, and it's a victory for mass, multiracial, multi-gender, multicultural, whatever protests.
Saying enough.
Yeah.
Enough.
And that's why it's not they're not drilling right now, and that can't just be reversed by a new president because Obama did fuck nothing to stop DAPL. So Trump, like Obama, did everything in his power to make it go through, and then it didn't work. And so Trump's going to do exactly the same thing, and guess what? We'll be there. So whatever.
Yeah.
It's gonna be.
Yeah, yeah. It's a world awakening movement. It's
gonna be-
really incredible to be a part of, and then to, see that so many people like you are interested. Thank
I
you,
mean,
thank you
oh,
for
I
the
know what I was
opportunity.
thinking about January too is that there's a date in January that their contractors can all bail now because
January
because
1st.
they were supposed to have oil going through
Oh
there.
yeah.
So that's another thing. We might not need any of them to stop
Yeah,
it.
yeah, we might not.
Everybody
do
might just
anything
bail
as far as
financially.
that, like because on January 1st,
That's what I was
all
thinking.
they're supposed to have oil flowing through the pipeline on January 1st.
Their
If
commitments
that
are
doesn't
null and
happen,
void.
all of their contractors, all of their investors can renegotiate the terms of their investment in their contract and say, nope, fuck this, I'm going home.
That's what's made them get crazy.
Yeah.
This,
So,
this is from a contract that they made in 2014,
yeah,
and so they are very eager to get a return on their investment.
yeah.
And the
Or to
only
get out.
That's probably why it's quiet too now, is because
Yeah.
they know they
They're
can't
not
keep
good.
that anyway. So
Yeah.
they're probably backing off anyway. Who knows
Yeah.
what if that was another month out? Could be a whole different story. but-
we could talk for hours, and I'm sure you have a schedule.
We have some bands and all this music, but I really appreciate you guys sharing your stories.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
having us,
Yeah, thank you.
and thank you, Laura.